Still with us, right, Michael?
I am.
Okay, great. All right, we're gonna have everybody come up. It's about 4 minutes.
That sounds great.
Start, yeah.
How many are there of you?
Just waiting for one more.
Jan? Okay.
Today, tomorrow, I got
Michael, we're just gonna we're waiting for Jan and then we'll start.
Sounds great.
Michael, can you hear us in Reno?
I can. Hi, Seth.
Hi. It's all yours. Ari's giving you the big thumbs up.
Great. Thanks, everyone. My name is Mike Morton. I am Senior Policy Counsel at the Nevada Gaming Control Board. I am so sorry and apologize that I can't be there in person today. The Mother Nature is not letting anybody outside of Reno or the Sierra Nevada mountains this week. So I'm going to do this via Zoom. We have a great panel today of industry and regulatory experts to talk about how regulators and technology innovators can work more closely and more efficiently together to bolster both the esports industry, but the technology industry as a whole, as it relates to the legacy gaming industry. I was going to introduce everyone, but I think it might be a little easier just because I am on the screen. If everyone could just quickly introduce themselves for the audience, starting with Brian.
Well, hello, everyone. My name is Brian Lessman. I'm a client solutions executive at Gaming Labs International JLI.
Anthony Strangia, Deputy Attorney General, New Jersey Division of Gaming Enforcement.
Hi, my name is Seth Shore. I'm the CEO of Fifth Street Gaming and a member of the Esports Technical Advisory Committee.
I'm Jan Jones-Batten Blackhurst. I sit on the board of Caesars Entertainment and also the Esports Entertainment.
Great, thanks everyone. So I was going to jump right into this, and Brian, I'll start with you. So, I think anyone that's worked with regulators, gaming regulators in any jurisdiction, knows how difficult and time-consuming that process can be, especially when we're talking about technology innovation, which is something that some regulators might not have the requisite expertise in. So, what have you seen that are the gaps between gaming regulators and those trying to advance technology in the gaming industry, and specifically related to esports?
Well, first, I would like to mention, off the top of my head, lack of communication, on both sides, between tech leaders as well as regulators. I think that right there is the obvious, first answer that comes to my head. We need to bridge this gap. We need to bridge that gap in order to grow this industry. Establish relationships, and it's something that GLI, a company that I work for, we have facilitated those kind of scenarios in the past. Second thing would be continuing education. As we know, technology is growing, seems like daily. And so with that, also having regulators as well, not only just be educated, but make an effort, continue to educate their people, understand the technology, understand what's going on in the tech world. And so I think those right there, Michael, would be, the two things that come to my head when talking about, what needs to improve overall.
Thanks. And then both Jan and Seth, I'll start with Mayor Jones. How did this gap become so wide? Is it, the attrition of regulators and staff to the industry? Or is it a general expansion of the regulated gaming landscape from just slots and table games to multi-platform gaming? Is it states not giving their regulators the freedom to innovate themselves, or is it a combination of all of those things?
It's a combination of all of those things. And I think it was exacerbated by COVID when all of a sudden everybody stopped talking to everyone. Esports is a little more difficult for the regulators to understand, which is why the technical committee was established in Nevada. Its sole purpose was to bring regulators in the industry closer together. I have to compliment New Jersey on.
Thank you.
Absolutely. We'd love to replicate it. Being a little more innovative and looking to find a path rather than waiting for the industry to tell them the path. I think more than anything, it's a process of communications. The esports industry has to realize it's a privileged industry, we're gambling, so you need to sit down and find a path. I laugh because I think back to sports. It was a long time ago when I was mayor, when they were still trying to build a stadium then. You couldn't even get the NC2A to speak to you. Now everyone wants to lay claim to Las Vegas being the sports capital of the world, and every sports team wants to go out and give you a skin and be able to bet with you. So we're there. It's just finding the conversation and pushing it forward in a thoughtful way.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. Just the nature of gambling regulation and the fact that it's done jurisdiction by jurisdiction adds a level of complexity that most technology innovators don't understand how to navigate. And quite frankly, to people outside this industry and even some people inside the industry, regulators are scary. How do you even approach regulators in different jurisdictions and understand what the path to regulation is? Certainly companies like GLI are helpful. I echo Jan's sentiment about New Jersey. I thought she was going to give kudos to New Jersey since Anthony came all the way from New Jersey where there was terrible snow. And Michael, you're stuck in Reno in the snow. So I don't know. I think that gives Nevada a bad reputation.
A desire.
I'm not gonna. It's too early in the hour to start the competition between Nevada and New Jersey. I'll leave that for the last 15 minutes. But while on the subject, Anthony, operating under this current, this wide chasm between tech innovators and regulators, and as someone who does it on a daily basis, how do regulators ensure that the technology that they're approving meets the current standards set by a given jurisdiction?
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. I feel like as a regulator, we've taken a lot of heat today. I would say our position as regulators, at least in New Jersey, has been don't reinvent the wheel. We did it first for internet gaming, then we did it for sports betting, and now with esports. We fit it within our existing regulatory framework. You don't need to do anything crazy. In our state, there are no impediments to esports wagering, right? So, if there's going to be a new event, the league comes in, it submits its integrity policy, it gets approved for wagering. Any of our sports books can accept wagers on it. In terms of the we're a little different in New Jersey. We don't allow third-party certification. With respect to our lab, they work with operators. They get in there, they test the system. They share our regs with each operator, so the operators know what exactly the lab is testing for, and if they find any issues during the testing process, they give the operators the opportunity to work on those, bugs, whatever you want to call them, and fix it. So I think in New Jersey, we've always tried to promote innovation. I don't know of an instance where we said, no, you're not going to do this. We try to make sure what we're doing is forward-looking for our industry because, we know products change, people's tastes change. To me, I personally think esports is the future. I think you're having now a younger generation that is growing up immersed in a digital world. So, and I think that generation, as they age, they're going to have higher expectations for what type of entertainment opportunities they want to pursue.
Great, thanks. So if that's the current landscape that we're currently operating in, Mayor Jones, how do we change that? How do tech innovators and state regulators close that knowledge gap, that information gap that apparently currently exists?
Honestly, I think it's one of communications. I think they just referred to it. You're afraid of regulators? Well, regulators are afraid of our industry, not esports, any gambling industry. So they're always going to be, their first reaction is going to be proceed with caution. But if you can lay out a structure, if you can tell them where you're trying to go, even if you know what it looks like, the games that you want to bet on, and how you're going to bet on them, and then what they need to do to put in regulatory guidelines to keep it safe for consumers. That's all they're really looking to do. They're not looking to block us. They're looking to try to protect the integrity of the industry. And I think if you understand that, you can have a conversation that gets you closer to the middle. I have one question. Does New Jersey limit the bets that you can take on esports still, or is it more about?
No, I would not use the word limit. What we have in New Jersey is, so if we're talking about third parties wagering on esports, which fits into our existing sports wagering rubric, under our Sports Wagering Act, events need to be approved by our director before any of our sports books can accept wagers on them. Under that statute, what will happen is either one of the sports books that's interested in accepting wagers on a particular event or the league sponsoring the event will come to us. They'll provide us with a copy of their integrity policy. And that's what we're really looking at. We want to ensure that this is a safe and fair competition. Patrons aren't going to, lose their life savings wagering on this thing that might be fixed or something. So we look to see the integrity policy, who's covered, how it's enforced. But once an event is accepted for wagering, it's accepted permanently. It does not, you don't need to have that event reapproved each year on year. And then any of our sports books can accept it. We publish the list of approved events on our website. So, a lot of times particularly with esports, people will focus like, well, what's the overall wagering activity? Well, we're in the early stages of it. So there's not a ton of events that have been approved. But that's only going to go up over time. So we're anticipating that its market share in terms of total overall wagering will increase.
The other thing I would tell the industry, if you look at professional sports, put esports in the category, they really started to move forward after they began to form leagues with commissioners, infrastructure, actual bodies that outline the rules, the regulations. So when you're coming to a regulator, you have a more comprehensive story to tell. I look back to the early days of poker, and most of you won't remember this, but we were taking all the poker tables out of our casinos because nobody played poker. We bought the World Series of Poker brand at Caesars for $1 million because it was a useless brand. And now you look at poker and where it is. And when we first even set up, when we thought we can do something with this brand, we set up our own mini league inside of Caesars with a commissioner, rules, regs, and then we started driving it out. And then we started having bigger games and ESPN, who's been broadcasting the games, all of a sudden everybody was interested. And I would really advise the esports industry to look at doing the same thing. You know, I know you all have a little bit of difference. That's just human nature. Find a commonality, put together something, and then make it easier for regulators to not only improve your regulatory environment, but do it in a consistent manner. So the rules aren't all over the board in different jurisdictions.
I know, actually, if I could just jump in real fast, that personally I know of an instance of that happening. So I know there are some esports events that don't have like a governing body. And so the Esports Integrity Coalition, ESIC, what they did was they found some of those events and basically bundled them together and passed an integrity policy, and were then able to get those events approved for wagering in New Jersey. So when you were discussing it, that sort of popped into my mind.
Brian, who is it incumbent upon to make sure that the space between innovators and regulators becomes smaller? Does one side have more responsibility than the other, or as a staff member of a regulator, sometimes this word raises some hairs, but should it be a true partnership when it comes to technology innovation?
Yeah, well, I think both sides have a responsibility in this. They both have skin in the game, as I like to say. So with the innovators, basically the tech and how their tech and which tech can assist and help this space. And the regulator side, understanding the tech to assist and adjust per regulations and per process.
And it was already mentioned before that by Mayor Jones that obviously gaming is a privileged license. So Seth, what have existing and aspiring licensees done to ensure that new innovation doesn't run afoul of current statutory and regulatory schemes across jurisdictions, especially as someone who's probably been operating in this space the longest?
I'm sorry, Michael, repeat the question.
Sure. What can operators, either gaming operators or esports operators who are aspiring to be licensees, maybe, what can they do now to make sure they're not running afoul of current statutory and regulatory schemes in gaming markets?
Yeah, thank you. Look, I could speak from the Nevada perspective. One of the benefits of the Gaming Control Board setting up the Esports Technical Advisory Committee is to give the Nevada licensees the comfort and guidelines to move forward should they choose in offering esports wagers. I know this panel is very focused on regulatory environment, which is certainly one of the boxes we have to check. But it's really, in my opinion, the biggest hurdle is the sportsbook operator themselves wanting to create this market. And I really think that's, the elephant in the room. And up until a few years ago, it was very easy for licensees to, not even want to try to create a market because there seemed to be regulatory hurdles. And, it's actually quite unique in Nevada that the regulators are passing laws before the sportsbook operator is really asking for those laws to be passed. And, so I don't mean to be, answering your question differently, but to me, we now have created these regulations in Nevada, and I hope that the sportsbook operators take advantage of them. And that's, yet to be seen.
I have a question, even though I'm not the operator. It's never bothered me. But do you think part of that hesitation on the sports books is they don't really know how to set the lines? They don't really know how to monetize it, so they pull back. And maybe isn't that a conversation some of the more astute operators can have with both books, the operators and the regulators, to come up with a product you can actually sell?
Yeah, I think that's definitely a part of it. I think there are some third-party products that are represented here today that can help. My theory is it's very simple. I think the big players, the MGMs, the Caesars, DraftKings, FanDuels of the world, I think the proliferation of mobile sports betting across the United States has actually been the biggest deterrent to esports. I think there's just been bigger fish to fry. Getting live in Massachusetts is just more important than figuring out lines on League of Legends. And that's been, these companies, as big as they are, have just been, drowning, trying to get into each state, and, competing, and customer acquisition expenses are too high. I truly believe, and I've said this for a few years now, that's going to come to an end. At some point this year or next, there's no more states coming online. California maybe at some point in the future. Massachusetts is like kind of the last big one for a while. At that point, DraftKings, FanDuel, MGM, Caesars have to look at themselves in the mirror and say, wow, we're selling the exact same commodity on our phone. Nothing is different between the apps. I say that respectfully. There just isn't. And one of them is going to say, okay, what can we do to differentiate? And I believe esports is one of the things, not the only thing. Esports is not a silver bullet, but it's a bullet. So a lot of people in this room are doing a lot of work. I think, over the next 12 to 18 months, we'll see these operators take advantage of that.
Great. Anthony, from the regulatory side, how can regulators become more adept at adopting advancements or understanding advancements in technology at a pace that more closely matches that of the industry itself? As the two regulators on this panel, I know that sometimes a question like that is frustrating because sometimes we are stifled by the budgets that we are given by our state legislators. But what can regulators do now to help these advancements move forward?
I would say education is key. I think coming to conferences like this one, like I'm sitting at right now, and getting out there, I think liaising with operators. I know in my current job, all the time we're approached by operators that want to present, even outside the esports context, that want to present, hey, we have this new product, this new idea. Is this okay? Is this something we can do? And we always sit down with them and we always, walk them through licensing or any regulatory hurdles. There is constantly innovation in gaming, and certainly there's the innovation in esports. I think that's the hallmark of it. I feel like esports are really cool, and I just think as like regulators, if you don't understand it, try to, and communicate with operators, and if there are aspects you need to get a better handle on, have to walk you through it, and just it's collaboration. That's really all it is. You just got to keep an open mind.
And then, Brian, someone who works for a company that often serves as a bridge between the industry and regulators, what have independent testing labs done in the realm of esports technology, and to serve both their clients and regulatory bodies?
Well, first thing, we observe and report at GLI. We follow trends, follow policy, as well as obviously keep in touch with the latest technology. So with that being said, establishing the proper resources in order to stay current in all things tech is kind of definitely what we definitely touch on. And the last thing, create and foster relationships within the esports community, I think is very paramount, with, jurisdictions, tech leaders, and like I said, people, esports influencers. So that is something that we at GLI have, stayed on top on to contributed to the esports community.
Great, thanks for that. And then, Mayor Jones, we all know that the strict regulation of the gaming industry generally is necessary. We've seen how successful rigorous regulatory schemes here in Nevada and in jurisdictions around the world, how well those things have worked. So how do we support regulatory bodies and regulators to make sure that the strict regulation doesn't stifle innovation at the same time?
I think that comes right back down to communication. It's not us versus them. It is us working with them on both sides. We're a regulated industry. Nothing about that's going to change. So if you want to be able to move forward, then it's also incumbent on you to look at it from a regulator's perspective, break it down so it's simple, and help them find a solution that not only allows them to do their job, but allows us to have a product that is easily accessible and more people can play. I don't know how we always seem to make this so difficult, like someone else is the problem. This is the industry we're in. It's been like this from its very inception. And if anything, it's gotten easier, not harder. It's just, this is a new conversation. So we need to figure out how to have it in a way that everybody everybody understands and everybody benefits.
Seth, as you know, your operation, took the first legal esports rager in Nevada in 2016. Now, as someone who himself has crafted regulatory proposals here in Nevada for esports regulation, what are the key issues that both regulators and operators need to focus on related to esports in the gaming space, and maybe some general technology issues that you've seen before regulators, recently?
Well, I think if we're focused on, betting on the outcome of professional sport, professional esport, there is no specific technology that differentiates esports from traditional sports. I mean, peer-to-peer betting, different topic, a little more complicated. I liked what Anthony said, that, New Jersey took the approach of having esports fit in the box that already exists. And I think, in Nevada, we finally got there. As you know, Michael, you participated very closely. There was a lot of debate early on whether Nevada should create new regs for esports or whether we should modify Reg 22. And thankfully, we chose the latter. Let's just take the existing regs. Maybe we have to change a couple words, which was great. Furthermore, really, if I can just distill, what we did was we put the power in the licensee's hands, right? So these are, operators that are approved, license holders that understand how to operate books and take their license very seriously, and allow them to determine what esport matches and leagues and tournaments they want to accept wagers on. Now, there's a list of requirements, and of course, there's an expectation that the licensees do their due diligence, and should they be audited and not having, find out that they didn't do the due diligence well, of course, there's consequences. But putting that power in the hand of the licensee, I think, was a very bold move, as opposed to what we had to do in the past, was go to the gaming control board for each and every match and apply. That process was pretty inefficient and cumbersome. So I think we've created a very safe environment for Nevada licensees to decide what they want to offer wagers.
Great.
Also, I think one of the reasons that the board, spent the time, created the Esports Technical Advisory Committee was because some of the licensees asked for it. I mean, Boyd Gaming, they showed up at the meetings, they pushed things forward. Licensees have to want it. The operators have to want it. They have to go to the regulators and, say this is important for our market. This is important for our state. And generally, I think regulators are going to listen.
And then, specific to New Jersey, Anthony, what are some of the issues and opportunities that you've seen arise relating to esports regulation, whether that's specific to wagering or technology in general?
Yeah, absolutely. Some of the issues that are unique to just esports, and they're navigable, but that are unique to esports is one, I know our sports wagering statute, its definition of a prohibited sports event is one where the majority of participants is under the age of 18. So that is actually something that in certain esports tournaments, we need to look at before we approve it for wagering. Another one is, we call it the Fertitta rule in New Jersey, just as like a vernacular, but it's 5:12-11F. But it basically prevents, it's a very, very broad statute. It prevents a lot of different things. But one of the things it prevents is a league can't also be a sports book. So, yeah, that would seem like weird if it was the NFL trying to take sports bets, but that actually has shown up. We had an instance of it in the sports context. So EEG is actually partnered with Hard Rock to run an esports-focused sports betting website. They hosted a Madden tournament in Atlantic City. They couldn't be both an operator and a sports book, so they realized that and they acknowledged it. So tournament participants were able to bet on themselves, Like the peer-to-peer contacts, which is more skill-based. But they did not open that up for wagering to like the general public, like that tournament, because they were the ones hosting it. And they weren't able to do both in our statute. So those are some of like the small issues I see in New Jersey that are really like unique to esports. Beyond that, I'd say there's been a lot of talk about like, regulatory hurdles and timing. A lot of it is licensing, because just like the gaming industry being tightly regulated, we look at the good character, honesty, and integrity of all our license applicants. So that's financial disclosure, that's bank statements, that's tax returns, that's criminal history. It's a lot of paperwork. It's probably similar to like for everybody else, like applying for a mortgage. So it takes time, and I think part of that licensing process, which really all of our licensees and applicants, they go through that same process. But if you're just entering this field, I can see where it could be like a little shocking at how time consuming it can be. But that's not ordinarily, at least in New Jersey, an impediment to going live or doing business. But it is something that'd be like a little bit different, if for somebody that's, coming from an esports background, trying to, get into wagering or offer a product or something.
Right. Brian, are there like specific questions in other jurisdictions that, GLI operates in that you've come across that related to esports potential to reach most jurisdictions at some point?
Can you repeat that, Michael?
Sure. Have you come across any questions or issues in jurisdictions where GLI operates related to esports that you think might reach all jurisdictions at some point?
Yeah, a few things. So first off, digital offerings. When I always get that question when a possible client comes to me, what can be offered? What kind of bet, what kind of game, what kind of platform? So that's usually the most popular, question I get asked. And as well as development and regulatory satisfaction, what do they need to do? So, as we all know, every jurisdiction is different. So those are basically the two questions that I get asked based on every call when a possible esports client does come to us at GLI. And then one other thing I'd like to add, though, with the growth of technology, it's something to where how will this affect this vertical? How will this affect esports? And so that's always a concern that we get asked at GLI as well.
Great, thanks. And sort of to put a bow on this panel. Seth, this is not the first time that you and I have had this conversation, either in private or in public, in forums like these. But I always like your sort of, gaming it out and seeing what this looks like, when it's epically successful. And so, Seth, what is esports regulation, not just wagering, but what is esports regulation, whether it's Nevada or in another jurisdiction? What does success look like?
Success, this is the 7th Casino Esports Conference. Is that right? It's year 7. So success comes by year 10. We could take bets over under. Look, I think while we all like to dodge the question on the handle in esports betting, that is a metric that has to be part of how we define success, and we're nowhere near success with that. However, I need to point out that I can remember 7 years ago, I think it was in the Luxor, the first Casino Esports Conference. I remember exactly where the industry was then versus today. And the progress that the industry has made has been subtle yet meaningful. And at that time, first of all, if you think there was communication issues with regulators today, forget about it. There was like no conversation happening. We had no idea what the game publishers thought. That's something we take for granted. The fact that on the Esports Technical Advisory Committee, we have members from Activision and Ubisoft, and most game developers at least want a seat at the table and are not against esports. We thought technology was an issue. That certainly isn't the case. So we've checked all those boxes and done it in a very thoughtful way. And here we are, where I think we finally start to see that success. So sorry I can't give you more of a clear answer, Michael, but I think we'll all be able to see what success looks like soon.
No, that is perfect. I think that underscores both the progress that has been made in the industry since it came into existence and came into the mainstream, but also the immense amount of work that still needs to be done. I think is clear both from the regulatory perspective and from the operator's perspective. Does anyone else have any closing comments they'd like to make?
We're sorry for giving you a hard time about the snow. We know you live up where the Donner Party got stranded.
That is true. I closely watched the Southwest app for all night as it kept getting delayed, and then they finally canceled it. So again, I do apologize for being stuck up here in Reno, but I would like to thank Mayor Jones, Seth, Anthony, and Brian for participating in this afternoon's panel, and to Ben and Ari Fox for inviting all of us to speak today. So thank you.
And the panel can stay with me because there may be questions for them.
Well, they're going to sit in the audience. All right, so this is, now we're going to wrap this up with a keynote from Mayor Jones. Yeah. Just want to get this set up. And there you go. There's your own slide.
I think these are on.
Yeah, they're
These
on.
need to go off.
I'll turn those off, or you can.
Yeah.
If you want to stand here, it's fine. We're just gonna wait for the camera guy to get in here, so he's gonna videotape the keynote. Tyler, you ready? Okay. Go ahead.
Okay, this is probably going to be the world's shortest keynote, which I'm sure will be a delight for everyone. Because I think much of what I had to say was really covered during this panel. I would agree with Seth, if I had to place a bet on when esports started to become more mainstream, it would be in the next 3 years. And it'll be for exactly the reason that, is it not? Yeah, it'll be for exactly the same reason that Seth said. If you go back decades in gambling history, for a long period of time, you could only gamble in Las Vegas or New Jersey. And then came all of the riverboats. And for better or for worse, every state wanted to regulate on their own. It gave them a comfort. They won't even let you standardize in most cases. I have applications in over 40 jurisdictions, and every single one I have to fill out the paperwork. So I think that's something you just need to get accustomed to. That's the rules, that's how it goes. On the other hand, every gaming company today is looking at the younger customer and thinking, how do I get their business? And right now, they don't want to gamble on our products. They're really not interested. They're interested in gambling on your products. So it's in all of our best interest to find a way to make that happen. And it's going to take communication. It's going to take sitting down and understanding what games you're going to make available for people to bet on. I mean, I referenced poker earlier. I could even see at a poker table, people play against each other and the house takes a vig. You could have something similar. Players can play against each other and the house takes a vig. We've heard so much conversation. Some in the industry will say, well, we're just going to wait for them to grow up and then they'll play our machines. That's never happening. They don't want to play our machines. So we really need to sit down as an industry and help the regulators and help the operators figure out how we make esports a viable gambling product. And the minute we can do that, we will not only grow esports, we'll grow this industry exponentially. And I think maybe it was Seth's point. Right now, everybody's looking at sports betting. And what's interesting about sports betting is there really isn't a lot of money for the industry in sports betting, but the customer loves it. And it's an acquisition tool. As soon as Massachusetts is done and everybody sort of calms down, they're going to start looking at the next shiny new product. And the next shiny new product is esports. And if you want it to be faster rather than slower, don't think of it as adversaries. Think of us all as participants in the same game where we're trying to come up with a product that is viable, that people can bet on, that operators know how to set the odds on, whatever that is. Is it a vig? Is it a line? Is it a combination of both? You're the smart guys. Help us figure it out. And then work with us and work together with the regulators to make sure that they can put in a regulatory structure that works for everyone. We may want to start, I think that New Jersey has set a great standard, but we may want to look at Arizona, at Colorado, in Ohio, where they're a little smaller, little hungrier, because as soon as 2 or 3 get it right, then we'll all get it right. And I would go back and remind you, I was in Las Vegas in the days where you couldn't even place a bet on a sports team in our casinos because they were sure we were somehow going to rig the games. Now they're all rushing to have their name on our casinos, including the NFL, because we're the sports capital of the world. So sometimes it's just capturing that moment. We know all the pieces. This panel up here told you every single piece that we need to have in place. So now it's incumbent on those of you in the industry to make sure that you assist in putting those pieces together and make sure that we all have a profitable future. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mayor Jones. And thank you, everybody, for today. It was a delightful, very educational. That's the point of the Casino Esport Conference. And to the point of Mayor Jones and what she was talking about, we've actually created an organization called Get It Global, which stands for Gambling Esports Technology Association. So if you go on to getitglobal.org and you sign up, just get your name on the mailing list. We're going to be doing webinars and educating the industry together as a unity in one organization. That's the getitglobal.org. And because I said it at the beginning of today as we started, it's together we are stronger than if we try to do this as individuals. So united we stand, divided we fall, and that's where we should take this industry together with the people in this room, the people that are trying to move the industry in that direction. Let's all talk about that now at the mixer. We have drinks outside. We can talk more about it. There's games. There's a tournament going on. If you guys want to play Asteroid, Z-Force, Bust a Move, and the bar is an open bar. So enjoy.
So it's almost like a gray area. That's why it's yeah, no,
One quick question, I was really curious about something. Do you really think it's
obviously,
they're not really welcome to be able to regulate this? Citizens